So why do industry plants exist? Industry plants are necessary because it allows the industry execs to properly build, develop, market, to invent new fashion and trendy ideas, and to be able to control these artists to push whatever agenda that the elites have to push in society and whatever end goals that they have for the future. These labels are able to put their artists on these platforms that they more than likely control. A lot of these radio podcasts, they're backed by the big conglomerates of the world, but they pretend to be independent. Podcasts like $1 Million Worth of Game, Vlad TV, DJ Academics Off the Record podcast, and just DJ Academics platform in general. The No Jumper podcast, The Breakfast Club, the list goes on. But the majority of so-called culture, our slang, the trends, the fashion, etc., it's not by us. It's not. For example, Tupac was a very popular figure in culture during the 90s. So you notice that a lot of men who, that idolized these entertainers during the 90s, they adopted the thug life mentality. The way Pac dressed, the tattoos, etc. And then in the early 2000s, guys wanted to be like Jay-Z, so they wore the jerseys. And then he ended up switching it to the button up. Like, I remember having a conversation with this guy. He told me, he was like, yeah, I remember when Jay-Z was, the hottest artist. Jay-Z had so much impact and so much influence. I remember, when he did that song, and I don't wear jerseys from 30 plus, give me a crisp pair of jeans, button up. He was like, that's when everybody switched from the jerseys to the button ups. These entertainers have a lot of influence. And then me included was wearing them big tall tees, doing the lean with it, rock with it. Then by like 2008, that's when, Lil Wayne had a stranglehold on culture. And you could still see his influence and impact to this day, which is why you see these guys with dreads sipping lean, face tatted up, hide up. And I think when it came to mumble rap, Lil Wayne walked so the Futures and the Young Thugs could run, which then opened the door for other mumble rappers, right? I was a big Lil Wayne fan, but I was kind of like not feeling when he dropped certain songs. Like, a lot of music that he was putting out during that time, it had a lot of mumbling in it. Even if you think about songs like Me and My Drink. I mean, me and my drink. Like, if you listen to that song, that's a fire song, by the way. But if you actually listen to parts of that song, it sounds like Lil Wayne is mumbling. Like, you can barely understand what the man is saying. And a lot of songs that he did in auto-tune back then, a lot of it was mumbling. So when you have a Future and a Young Thug, they're going to take it and put their own spin to it. Then it's going to be replicated. It's going to be a domino effect. But all the style and the fashion that you see, it isn't created by us. Nobody in our community are just coming up with these, these styles, the way you style your jeans, the way you put your shirt on. Like, most of it is influenced by celebrities, and then you might put your own little spin onto it, right? Like, when you see black people get upset and they be like, when they see white people doing all these dance challenges and, doing these so-called trendy dances, and they dressed in the latest hip-hop fashion, we don't create this stuff. Most of this stuff comes from the elites. That's why you seen Professor Griff in that interview talking about the deeper meaning behind the Soulja Boy dance. About that Crank That Soulja Boy.
Soulja Boy, that was out of somebody? And how many of y'all knew the dance? Come on, you older people. Y'all know y'all did the dance. Yes, y'all was. But how many of you really know what the song was about? You know. Raise your hand if you know. Yo, no, y'all need to stop. When they, just in essence, when they was talking about doing the Soulja Boy, and they talking about super soak that hoe, you talk about masturbating on a woman's back and then giving her a towel to put on her back, and now she has the cape and the sperm on her back. And yes! And this is what your children was dancing. Yeah, Tay Tay, Riri, Man Man and them was dancing too. See, but you didn't check it because you didn't know anything about it.
Majority of this stuff isn't created by us. If you ever seen the pyramid and how the pyramid works, it starts from the top and then it trickles down to the bottom. The celebrities are the one who popularize the latest fashions, and then we pick it up. Just think back into the 1500s. Everybody was wearing them little dresses or kilts, right? But you think a black person back then had on some skinny jeans with some J's on and the gallery department t-shirt? No. They wore the fashion that the elites designed for that time. You know, same with the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, and now. It's still going on now, right? But the majority of these labels, if not all, are connected in some way to the CIA. But I'm not going to get too deep into that for the sake of YouTube purposes. But all this stuff is predetermined, it's scripted. The main objective of today is to divide the sexes. So that's why they pushing thought culture so heavy, to perpetuate and normalize these stereotypes, not just for women, but for men also. Right? Did y'all not just see what Jerry Springer just said? Did y'all not see what Jerry Springer just said? Remember, like predominantly black women watch Jerry Springer and Maury. Then look at this quote by Nicki Minaj. You know, this was an older article that she did, but she stated that Nicki Minaj had covered the Elle magazine. And she says she felt guilty for her role in making girls Instagram prostitutes. Instagram prostitutes. She says, it makes me sad that maybe I've contributed to that in some way. Now, when I did a video a few months back talking about how Nicki Minaj were shaming black people for what they doing with their money, for going out and buying all these expensive things, when this is a culture and a lifestyle that you are a part of promoting, you and your industry peers. Listen to what she says. She says, I wanted to cry. All I do is wear Chanel. She says, as soon as I realized that I could actually live and breathe and eat and sleep and walk and talk without having a boyfriend, something clicked in me. She says, becoming single was one of the things that made me feel strong and powerful. The fact that I'm a young woman who doesn't need a man for money. I don't need a man for a job. I've never had to for beats. I've never had to F for a record deal. I don't have those pressures. I get up when I want, shot when I want. You know, see, now you see why they're heavily encouraging and influencing a lot of women to be single, independent, and not need a man. She says, how many girls were modern day prostitutes? She says, I don't really know how to say that without being offensive. She says, maybe I was naive, but I didn't realize how many girls were modern day prostitutes. She begins. She says, whether you're a stripper or whether you're an Instagram girl, these girls are so beautiful and they have so much to offer. But I started finding out that you give them a couple $1,000s and you can have sex with them. Well, it go to show you how much out of touch with reality that she is, you know, because some girls are doing for the $40, you know what I'm saying? They do it for that dollar, for that low. I was like, yikes. It's just sad that you don't know your worth. It makes me sad as a woman, and it makes me sad that maybe I've contributed to that in some way. So that's Nicki Minaj acknowledging her influence. The power of her influence. So when you see people say, it's just entertainment, out of Nicki Minaj's own admission, she feels bad for what she did. So this is much deeper than rap. So y'all keep that in mind when a lot of y'all women be attacking me and be talking about, here goes another man, coochie hating, which was a fire bar, by the way, like that was fire. But just listen to what Nicki Minaj just expressed, and just think about how now it has gotten worse with the Cardi B's, the Meg Thee Stallions, the Glorillas, the Lottos, the City Girls, the Bias of the world, and all the other Shade Room rappers. Like, they are subconsciously manipulating us, bro. They boosting women egos up so high that it's making you have these crazy, unrealistic expectations, so that a lot of women are turned off by men for the littlest things, like their zodiac signs, or because he doesn't have big D energy. And then they're nitpicking and finding anything to be a small turnoff in men so that we could keep the marital rate down and stop the black families. And they are making the men get turned off because they already been taught that women should be classy like their mothers and not twerking mid-conversation. But they want y'all to be baby mamas. That's why they popularized the gender reveals. They already made it cool to make men be baby daddies. All this stuff is ruining us. But as I said, celebrities are pawns. Even the fake pro-black leaders. And they lead women to believe they should be liberated and convince them that the men are y'all enemies. So the cell phone It's making us less sociable in addition to the dating apps. Women like, we doing what we want. We doing what the guys doing. We outside. And then the men becoming soft. So we all confused, but we all being played. I ain't picking a side, man or women. We all being played. Men and women. But these artists are linked and tied since birth. They just not letting people like me and you inside the industry get signed to a major label and be a big artist. Now, you could probably be signed and do some ghostwriting for writers. Like, for example, you had producers that produced for Dr. Dre, but he took all the credit. Everything is already lined up and set in stone for a lot of artists, bro. They have their own team of writers. It's multiple writers writing for one artist. The artist's job is just to go out and entertain. A lot of the stuff that you think be organic, it be gimmicks. Like that new rapper, Baby Rackz, the dude who was allegedly signed to Gucci Mane, right? But he tweeted out in frustration when Takeoff passed away, how he was outraged and, how he didn't like Houston. And then next thing you know, Gucci Mane announces that he's been dropped on Twitter. All of that was a marketing ploy. If nobody knew who Baby Rackz was before that day, they know now. Because why? Gucci Mane is a well-established artist and he's famous. So it brought more attention to who Baby Rackz was. But it turned out that he was signed to Atlantic Records all along. And Gucci Mane has very close ties with Atlantic Records. Y'all remember I told y'all in that Cardi B is an industry plant, allegedly, video, right? How the A&R reps were behind her success since the beginning. And they manufacture her story. But they put her on Love and Hip Hop and all these other different platforms so they could normalize and further that behavior. Same with Krishan Rock. But that's why the industry needs industry plants.